So a few weeks ago, I put out a video talking about an unused game mechanic that I would have liked to see in new game releases. I highlighted what that mechanic was, what it did, and how it could be expanded upon for modern games. And I also asked you guys what game mechanics you'd like to see from games that you've played and enjoyed. Now, I got a recommendation for the junction system in Final Fantasy VIII, and I'm a huge fan of that game, so I would love to do that. But I decided that I should do something first since I'm heavily biased. I'm definitely going to do Final Fantasy VIII, but I'm going to be completely honest with you, I could talk about that game for hours. I got another comment, though, about a game that I don't know as well, but I am at the very least aware of, and that is Kinetica. Kinetica was a PlayStation 2 racing game, and even though I didn't play the full game myself, I had it on a jam pack disc. If you don't know, jam pack is a disc with a bunch of demos for different games, and it was on one of the volumes of that. Specifically the one that had, let's see, it had Extermination, Final Fantasy X, Kinetica, and something else. I don't remember all of them, but I'm pretty sure that was the volume that I had and that it was on. Obviously, having only played the demo, I just kind of assumed that there was no story involved, or that I wasn't going to get any context. And I did try to get my hands on the full game, but it was really hard to find. I don't think I ever knew anybody who had Kinetica on PlayStation 2. So, unfortunately, my experience is incredibly limited since I've only played a demo of that game. All of my research into the game led to a bunch of concept art that, of course, I'm a huge fan of. It's got a very technic, like, human fused with machinery type of vibe, and it's very much my aesthetic. I was actually thinking of trying to get my hands on an outfit that looked like that, but then I thought of how I would basically never have an opportunity to properly show it off. I don't think I could really use it, so I don't want to get any more outfits that I just won't ever use. But it was fun to think about. PlayStation Underground had a bunch of videos, demos. It was like a subscription service for fans of video games, and they did one about Kinetica. Before we jump into the PlayStation Underground video, though, this was about mechanics, and the comment just said, remake/redesign Kinetica, and I was wondering what specific mechanic that they were wanting to see in newer games. It's a racing game, so I was kind of confused as to what they were really asking. They replied saying that they weren't sure if it was a mechanic or not, but they wanted to see more games have a similar layout of race. For example, scaling up buildings to basically drive upside down. I didn't realize the charm this game had as a kid, but it was definitely ahead of its time. And at first I was like, okay, so you basically just want non-linear tracks in a racing game. And I thought about it, and I do kind of sort of remember that being a feature in Kinetica, where you're basically driving straight towards a building, but instead of crashing and, like, when you hit it, you start going up the side of it. And then you're upside down going kind of backwards. So I was like, okay. Are there really no other racing games that do non-linear tracks? Now, granted, I don't know the most about racing games. It's not my favorite genre, but I'm also no stranger to them. I tend to stick mostly to the arcadey type of racing games and away from the simulator types, so I should know about it if it existed. And I thought, well, Split Second has you changing tracks using destruction. So it's kind of non-linear, but you're at no point in time ever breaking the laws of physics or anything. So that one doesn't count. Pure is a by-the-books ATV racing game with emphasis on tricks. And a lot of games since Kinetica started using tricks to gain boosts so that you can go faster. So there's nothing really new on that front. But then I was reminded of Distance. Distance is a non-linear game, but it's kind of hard to say that it's a racing game since the only thing you're racing against is the clock. But it definitely does have a lot of non-linear elements to it, but that's because you're not doing laps, so I don't think that that really counts either. But I would definitely say that that's the closest approximation. But let's look into Kinetica and see what they were going for when they made it. This is an old PlayStation magazine. This was out in 2001. And even with these older graphics, you can kind of tell that this is it's like fan servicey, it's kind of hot, it's like, the guys are cool.
It's fast-paced, futuristic, and a hell of a lot of fun. Experience the ultimate evolution in racing in Santa Monica Studios' sleek new racer, Kinetica.
Yeah, this is some of the art that I was seeing.
Kinetica is a futuristic racing game. It has characters that put these kinetic suits on that give them certain abilities to race up buildings and have speed in excess of 200-300 miles an hour.
We wanted a very, very fast-paced racing game where the emphasis was on speed and the maneuverability of the bikes, and we wanted to do something interesting as well.
These designs, I'm gonna be honest, I mean, of course it's my aesthetic. Obviously, I love this.
Do something interesting.
But
emphasis
let me
was
go
on
back a little bit.
speed and the maneuverability of the bikes, and
this is actually reminding me of Final Fantasy 13 when you get Shiva and it's Nyx and Styria and they like kind of combine together to make the bike that Snow rides on. It very much reminds me of that.
we wanted to do something interesting as well.
The most interesting thing about Kinetica is that the vehicles are actually kinetic suits that the riders meld into, thus giving the rider incredible agility.
In most racing games, the vehicles are kind of boring. I mean, they're cars, you know, the wheels turn. That's really about the only animation that you have on the vehicle. We have very animated characters. They're people. They have wheels attached to the skins. The entire body moves when they do a turn. And we had to develop an animation system that allowed us to do that.
But Kinetica isn't just about going fast. As you're racing, you can perform stunts. And if you want to win, you'd better get your tricks down, because more tricks mean more speed.
So this part is not so unique.
Stunts, the amount of stunts you do play a direct role in how much boost you have.
I mean, by now, obviously, we have a lot of racing games where you're doing tricks to get boost, and then you use that boost to go faster. So the doing tricks part becomes integral to your ability to go faster.
It all depends on the look of the bike. Each of the bikes has...
Keep in mind, though, at the time, this was probably a very unique concept because not a whole lot of racing games had tricks. And if they did, it wasn't going to make you any faster. It was more like earning points. Or, I'm trying to think. When was Burnout? Burnout Revenge was kind of late in the PlayStation 2. There was something where you're like destroying taxis to earn points, and you could do tricks in that. I don't remember the name of the game, but anyway.
She can do backflips. There's all sorts of figure skating stunts. We've used ballet a little bit for some reference material for us. Triple toe loops.
While you're performing stunts and racing, you
Very
also
cool.
need to keep your eyes open for
Break
power-ups scattered
dancing,
along the
ballet,
tracks.
that's cool.
We have boost pads throughout the track, and they're pretty much self-explanatory. You drive over those, and they push up the horsepower of the bikes quite a bit.
You can also siphon boost from the turbo pads. If you press one of the control buttons while you're driving over a pad, you can suck the turbo into the bike to be used at a later date rather than use it at the same time.
And we
Interesting.
also have crystals throughout the track, and once you pick up 5 of those, it goes into kind of a slot machine deal.
There are some offensive attacks as well. You can pick up a burst attack, which allows you to knock other bikes out of the way, spin them out of control.
There's an infinity boost, which basically allows you to just keep pushing it and keep going faster and faster. Super boost, which ups the speed of the boost even more. And then we have drafting, which forms a draft cone behind bikes ahead of you, and if you can maneuver within that cone, you also get more boost.
Oh, interesting.
Kinetica has a unique control system, one that should help separate it from the pack of racing games out there.
In order to make the bikes feel very fluid and animated, we're using that sensitivity of the analog stick, so that if you lean slightly over, the bike will only move slightly. If you lean the whole way over, the bike will turn very hard. We're actually using both of the DualShock analog sticks, the left one for steering and the right one for braking and acceleration.
And then to perform tricks, you hold down the R1, and then at that point, that takes away the control of the bike's maneuvering from the left stick. And at that point, you do similar to fighting game type moves to perform stunts, so sweeps and back and forth. And then at that point, all you have to do is make sure that you finish this stunt and let go of that button before you land it.
Cool.
With all of this blazingly fast action on the screen, Kinetica takes advantage of all the power of the PlayStation 2.
The PS2 changed the way that we made the game very considerably. We had to deal with many, many more polygons than we did on PlayStation 1 games. Kinetica is pushing upwards of 15 million polygons a second. Our main characters, the
Keep in
bikes
mind
the
at the
game
time,
have
15 million
10,000
polygons is
for their
crazy.
heights of detail.
Nowadays,
12
that's a
bikes on the
joke.
screen at any one time. We were throwing more polygons into one bike than we threw into the entire scene on the PlayStation. Overall, it just made the game look infinitely better.
And you really don't see design like that anymore, where the emphasis is on the game itself and not so much on making it visually
Kinetica
appealing.
is an amazingly beautiful game with levels that you could never imagine. We asked Quinn and Tim to tell us about their favorites.
I really like the space station levels. We end up
Okay, we
doing
got
this
level
thing where
discussion.
You open up into these pods, and you have a lot of alternative paths to get through them. Kinetica is different than other racing games because of the fact that we've allowed people to drive on walls, pretty much go where they feel they want to.
The levels that take place in a power station have some really trippy effects in them. Very interesting environment to race in. It's very kind of neon and glowing, and it's really those levels are really nice. I think that those are probably my favorites.
Kinetica is a completely original game, and we think it'll blow you away. So get ready to strap on your kinetic suit and bust some huge tricks.
Interesting. So they definitely raise a good point in that I can't think of any racing game that has you traversing buildings and different environments like that. Yeah, now that I think about it, that something like that would be really interesting to see. Take the ideas of maybe Gravity Rush, where you're able to shift gravity in a certain direction. So like make it to where your down is on the side of a building, and now all of a sudden you're walking on that like it's normal, except apply it to a racing game. I could see that being really interesting, actually. And it would still be as unique now as it was in 2001. So that's definitely a good recommendation. Kinetica is not what I was expecting, but I'm glad that I'm thinking about it now. And I appreciate you leaving a comment. Like before, if you can think of any other game mechanics that you'd like to see from some other niche games or even popular ones, please leave a comment down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in another video.